Winning rounds when you're down numbers isn't about hitting insane shots. It's usually about one small decision that most players don't even think about. When you're down a player, the enemy team should win if the round plays out normally. So your goal becomes simple. Don't give them the round they want. It's about recognizing what the enemy team wants to do and disrupting it. But the way you do that changes completely depending on whether you're attacking or defending. If you're attacking, the biggest mistake players make is giving away information too early. The second the defenders know exactly where you are, they get to adjust everything. They can pull players over and set up a crossfire that's fully focused on you. But if you stay quiet and make them worry about the gaps on the map, things start to get uncomfortable for them. They start thinking of the possibility that someone could be lurked up or flanking them. And the longer that uncertainty sits there, the harder it is for them to hold their setup. Because eventually, someone has to move to pick up the gap. And the moment someone moves, the setup is broken. That's where the opportunity comes from. Those gaps start turning into isolated players. And isolated players are exactly what you're looking for when you're down numbers. Now let's break down some attacking examples where you have to go into the opponents. In this example, you'll see Devi in a 1v3 situation. And because he hasn't made any noise, the defense is spread thin, holding 3 separate gaps. These gaps that I talked about earlier is what creates isolated fights that can get you back into the round. Now that the defenders know where you are, your goal needs to be centered on trying to figure out what the enemy setup is to be able to isolate fights. Being able to read out the enemy setup is largely based on your game sense and understanding of the map. When retaking A from A main, elbow is the only real pivot position to play off of somebody's contact from sight. So Devi mollies it and ends up punishing a mistake. But because it wasn't a double swing, Devi didn't read exactly where Artson was, so now in the 1v1 he has to respect every gap and ultimately loses the round. Here we have Devi and something in a 2v3 against Nungshim. There are 4 gaps for the opponent to be mindful of: B main flank, mid, elbow, and heaven. With only 3 players alive and no info on your opponent, Nungshim has to play positions that can spot these gaps so they don't get killed for free. This creates an isolated duel onto Dombi. Enemy positioning is a key piece of information in understanding the rest of the enemy setup. In this case, because Dombi is fully exposed to B main, PRX can safely assume that one player must be holding Dombi's main. And in this case, you see PRX's immediate shift into reading the setup by trying to find that player that had to be holding Dombi's B main. The kill comes through on Ivy, Francis gives audio, and Devi lands a great shot to close out this down numbers round. Here we have Forsaken in a 1v3 situation against G2. As you can see by the mistake from Leaf, being quiet on the map is pretty powerful. Once again, now the enemy knows where you are, you have to read out the setup. Forsaken instantly uses a TP jump spot to find Chamber and spawn. Notice how after Forsaken fights Chamber, he instantly searches for the other player, reading a swing from backside. In this case, he lost a 50-50 on which side Phoenix would swing from, but ends up having great movement with the goal of isolating the fights. Now let's look at an example where Nongshim makes audio when they're down numbers. Only one person's holding the mid gap, and all of PRX is fully ready for the fight to come. You can see that something starts to angle out, the blind comes through on perfect timing. It's extremely easy to play against a team that gives free audio. This is the round that PRX wants. Defense is a little different. Now the enemy team has to come into you, usually with utility and a plan. If you just sit in a corner or hold some random off angle, you're probably going to get util dumped and traded immediately. So the first thing you want to think about is making yourself hard to trade. That usually means playing at a pivot, taking short peeks or crouch peeks, quick fights where you can shoot and immediately fall back. You're not trying to take some huge committed duel, you just want small opportunities to get a kill where you can't be traded. Next thing to keep in mind is trying to disrupt the enemy's plan. Attackers usually want to scale into a site with good spacing and use their utility right before they fight. But if you peek at the right moment, you can catch them with their utility out and completely ruin that timing. And that's really the key. Finding those small windows where you can disrupt the hit or even isolate one of the players as they run in. Let's check out some defense examples, starting with Paper X in a 3v4. The PRX players opt into positions that enable you to enter and exit fights whenever they want. For that reason, I'll call this a pivot position. These pivots are important because they help you be in a spot where you can get an opportunity for a kill and instantly become untradeable. You can see in the way that Jing takes this fight that the idea is to get an opportunity to shoot the guy that's trailing behind as a way to isolate the fight. The intent isn't even necessarily to kill, but more so look for opportunities to pre-fire the player while staying untradeable. Our next example comes from Furious EU. I want you to take note of the fact that EU's fights all come with a mindset of untradeability. The first angle is a pixel angle, where he only intends on taking a few shots and giving the angle instantly. After tucking and gaining the info, he short peeks to pre-fire the raise with the intention of giving the angle. Now that he has the info on fade, the same pattern continues. Now let's watch it back in full speed. Pixel holds, short peeks, and crouch peeks are all untradeable fights that should be part of every defensive down numbers situation. The types of fights that shouldn't be used when down numbers comes in this next example. One of the worst case scenarios is if you let your opponent get close to you and use util freely. PRX makes a mistake here, and Koala Noob hits incredible shots, but you can clearly see that a triple swing with a Yoru flash and raise satcheling to crosshair displace is very possible here. This is how it should feel instead. Outside of sitting back and getting util bombed, the other common mistake is playing off angles. Off angles are very tradable, and trading down when you are down numbers will only lead to you losing the round. At the end of the day, winning down numbers isn't about hitting insane shots. It's about creating situations where the enemy can't play the round that they want to. On attack, that means staying quiet and reading out their setup. And on defense, it means being proactive and taking untradeable fights. If you can consistently do that, you'll start winning rounds that you were never supposed to win. Like, comment, and subscribe for more videos like this.